Let's make a quick and easy jelly roll quilt. I love using pre-cut fabrics. I especially love using jelly rolls because one, a lot of the cutting is already done for us. And two, jelly rolls are really fun to use the strip piecing technique with. I feel like strip piecing really helps me bring a quilt together nice and easy, especially when I'm doing different patchwork blocks like the 9 patch. I love the 9 patch. It is so versatile. I have a few patterns that utilize the 9 patch, and this just happens to be one of them. We're going to be making a 9 patch block like the one I just showed you, and then we're just going to be putting a border around it. But I'm showing it with a light border and a dark border. This quilt's gonna come together really fast, so grab your fabrics. I'm gonna let you know exactly what you need and then we'll get started. All right, so for this quilt, you're gonna need a jelly roll that has some prints. And then you're also going to need some background fabric. I used 1.5 yards of dark fabric that I cut down into the cuts needed for the background. And then I used 1.5 yards of a light fabric to cut down into the cuts needed for this quilt pattern. The cutting is really, really easy, but if you want to skip a step, you can use a dark solids jelly roll and a light solids jelly roll as well. You're going to need 48 dark 2.5 by 10.5 inch strips, 48 2.5 by 6.5 inch strips that are in the dark fabric, and then the same in the light fabrics. So 48 light 2.5 by 10.5 and 48 2.5 by 6.5. So when you're sorting your jelly roll strips, keep in mind you're only going to need 27 jelly roll strips, and you're going to need 15 that are sort of a darker fabric and then 12 that are a lighter fabric. So you're going to want to organize this so that you are making different strip sets here. You're going to have a strip set that has a dark, a light, and a dark. And you're going to need 6 strip sets like this. And you're only going to need 3 strip sets that have a light, a dark, and a light. Once all of your strip sets are sorted and you have all of your background fabric cut, it is seriously smooth sailing from here on. Everything comes together so fast. So first, let's sew our strip sets together. I have 2 here. And I'm just going to place them right sides together, bringing the edges of the fabric together and just sew along here. I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam all the way across. Press the seam toward the dark fabric. Once the seam is pressed really well, we're going to add the 3rd strip onto this set. And that just happens to be another light fabric. So I'm going to put it on the other side of the darker fabric and sew a 1/4 inch seam. Again, press the seam toward the darker fabric. On these 9 patches, no matter the strip set combination, you're going to press toward the darker fabric. All right, now that this strip set is pressed nicely, we're going to trim it down into our strip segments. So this is how these little segments are going to turn out after we cut them. This is the exact combination as this strip set here. So I'm going to line up one of the raw edges of my strip set on a line on my mat. And I have this strip set layered. It just helps me cut it a little bit faster. If you don't feel comfortable folding it over and layering it, just lay it flat and cut your strip sets. All right, just like I'm trimming down yardage, I'm going to clean up one edge of this fabric and get it nice and straight. And then I'm just going to cut my 2.5 inch segment. So I'm just going to come over 2.5 inches on my mat and cut. If you don't want to use your mat to cut these measurements, you don't have to. You can always use a ruler to measure that out if you prefer. So I'm just going to keep cutting 2.5 inch segments, and you should be able to get 16 segments from each of these strip sets. All right, so here are all 16 of my segments from that strip set. Now, from the other strip set that has the dark, the light, and the dark strips, after sewing and trimming this strip set, you are going to get segments that look like this, that have the dark, the light, and the dark. Now, here's why it's important to have the two different strip set types. You're going to have the dark, the light, and the dark on top of your 9 patch, and then the segment with the dark in the middle. And then another strip set that has the dark, the light, and the dark. So when you bring this together, you're going to get that beautiful 9 patch like this, where your darker fabrics are in the middle and in the corners. And that just gives a really nice look to this 9 patch in this design. All right, so you're going to sew together all of those strip sets. You're going to have 9 strip sets total, 3 of them with that dark fabric in the middle and 6 with the dark fabric on the outside. Get them all pressed and cut down, and then you can start bringing all of your 9 patches together. We're going to be sewing up 48 9 patches. So we're going to have 48 blocks total. 24 of the blocks are going to have a light border and 24 are going to have a dark border. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's sew together these 9 patches first. So all we're going to do is take the top of the 9 patch, lay it on that middle strip set, line up those seams. Because we pressed all the seams to our darker fabric, they're going to nest together nicely. You'll just feel it come together like a puzzle piece. If you want to, pop some pins in here, especially at the seams. I'm just going to go with it and sew right across. All right, I'm just going to finger press that seam. Little secret here, it doesn't matter which way you press that seam, so press it any way your heart desires. All right, and so now all we're gonna do is sew the bottom segment onto the middle. Again, just make sure those seams line up. They'll nest together like a little puzzle piece. Pop some pins in if you want to, and sew right across there. All right, press that seam, and then press this cute little 9 patch really well with your iron. Isn't the 9 patch block just so pretty? It's so simple, but every single time I make one, I just love how they turn out. All right, so we're gonna border this block, and for that, you're just gonna need 2 of your 6.5 inch border strips. I'm gonna choose to border this one in the darker fabric, but again, remember we're making 24 blocks with the darker border and 24 with the light. So just lay it across one side and sew a 1/4 inch seam. All right, just gently press that seam out toward the border. And then just add the other 6.5 inch strip onto the other side, the opposite side as the first. Gently press that seam. Then once we get the seams working in the direction toward the border, I'm gonna use the iron and add some heat to that seam. All right, and then you guessed it, we're gonna add the longer strips to either side that is left unbordered. Press the seam. And then add the 10.5 inch strip to the final side. Press the seam. And there it is. That's it. That is the block. I absolutely love making this, and it looks so cute when you start adding them next to each other and see that checkerboard pattern come together. So again, this is the block with the darker border, and then you're going to do some the same way with the lighter border. So here are just 4 of the blocks laid out. So you can see how it starts coming together. Now with 48 of these blocks, we're going to have 8 rows with 6 blocks in each row. So just lay them out how you like them to look and sew those rows together and bring the quilt top together. You'll have about a 60-inch by 80-inch quilt. I absolutely love how this quilt turned out. I love the reds and the florals in this quilt, and I hope you have as much fun as I did bringing this quilt together. It comes together so quick and easy with these pre-cut jelly rolls, and using the strip piecing method really makes this a breeze. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.